Hello, Emmy. Thank you so much for doing this. Let's start asking you where you were born and where you live right now, and maybe try to connect those two places with some story.
I'm in New York. I was born in New York, and I'm in New York. I,
Well, not bad, right?
I just went right in a big loop all around the world. So I was born in New York, and then there's been many places in between, such as New York, North Dakota. I was in the Philippines. I was in Oregon, and I was in Alaska to finish my master's, and then I was back in New York City, and now I'm a little more upstate New York in a home, in our home.
Okay, and you've been painting all this time, right? In all these places, or you're doing different things?
Okay, so I didn't start, I'm 47, and I didn't start painting until I was 30. However, I was drawing since I was 9. So drawing was my go-to medium for so long, and I never really painted. I did do some acrylic painting in Oregon, and I worked with Royal Nebuchadnezzar. I took a workshop in a coastal town, but I didn't really start painting until I was 30, until I went to the Art Students League, and then I was really painting in oil.
And what triggered this movement from one um, I don't know, instrument, or how would you call
A
the
media,
drawing, the media?
a media, medium. Yeah, I felt like a fraud. To be honest, I felt like a fraud. I felt like I knew how to draw. I knew how to do some painting. I've sculpted. I took a lot of ceramic classes, but I kind of skirted around everything around uh, art, making art, everything but the painting. It was like a big hole in my career, and I said, I have to at least try to find out if that's an avenue that I want to take, instead of pretending painting didn't exist in the art world. So that's it. Painting now.
And how how this all go around influenced your painting, or this. uh, So basically, what I'm interested is if the places and the locals that people pass it through, how this influence the things that they do professionally or in private. So how the places that you've been, or even maybe the place where you were born and where you are right now, how do you see this influencing what you paint now, or maybe this change of media from drawings to paints, all the things around? How do you see this connected with all these locations, or you don't? It's
I
something that just happens on your mind.
I think I think it's whatever our path is. It's our path. I was lucky enough to meet my high school art teacher, Sherry Turkheimer. And when I was 15, I was, a little wild and troubled. And she took me to these life drawing classes. And my mother was willing enough to say, go ahead, take her, educate her. So she would pick me up every Thursday night from 6 to 10. I would take a college class in drawing the figure, the nude figure. Probably wouldn't happen today, but back then my mother trusted the teacher, and it was a little weird drawing a nude figure at 15, 16 years old. But that that was a key component that got me accepted into Pratt Institute. And if I didn't have the figure drawing, I would never have gotten into Pratt Institute, because my high school didn't provide the classes that I needed. Now, maybe we wouldn't have had a nude model in public school, but maybe we could have had a clothes model, but there was no budget for that. So that didn't happen. And she saw the crack, and she saw the hole, and she said, you know, this is what you need in your resume to get you to the next level. And so I think that that's where it started. And how has that affected my painting today? Because that led me on a journey of about 20 years, no, 10, 15, how was I? 18, 15 to 30. So about 15 years that led me on a drawing journey. And I do believe that drawing is the foundation to painting for me, for not other people, but for me, because I draw what I see. I do a lot of plein air work, and especially in plein air work, when you're painting outside plein air, that means it can be very overwhelming and overstimulating when you see this vast landscape and you're saying to yourself, what am I painting? Like, what is important to me? And I think drawing helped me sort all of that out. So I think it started when I was younger with Herkheimer.
Okay, can we go deep into this, because it was very interesting what you said, like about the overwhelming of the landscape and how drawing helps you. Can you say select? But
Yeah.
I'm not sure if. So what I wonder is this: like the medium helps you select. How is this process? Do you think you can explain a little bit? How do you select what to draw when you look at the vast?
Because
How? And I can tell you later what is in my mind is I'm always interested in how people not organize chaos, but how they deal with the overwhelming of information. Oh, we live in this overloaded world, so overloaded with information. So how do you deal with that when you select the argument of your drawings?
because before I start a painting, I can do thumbnail sketches, which are, 2 by 2 inch or whatever the ratio is. If I'm drawing a 6 by 12, then I would make my little thumbnail sketches kind of in the same shape to sort out what I think is important. So I do these little sketches that they're nothing on paper. They're itty bitty things. They're not finished. They don't take a long time, but basically I'm sorting out composition is what they're for. So maybe I do a close up of a tree. Then maybe I put that tree midway, and then I put it all the way far back distance from me. And I think sometimes when I start a painting or a drawing, I think I fall in love with the tree, but really it's not the tree. I fell in love with a shadow that was behind the tree. So the thumbnail sketches open a conversation in myself that say, okay, this is what you think is important, but now let's confirm it. Do you really love that tree, or do you really love the shadow? And sometimes the thumbnail sketches, they either support what I thought, my initial thought, or they say, hey, no, you really love the shadow. So I think the drawing helps me sort information about what I want to put in a painting.
Well, this the idea of opening a conversation is incredible. Um, so you could say that it's a language. It's more the medium is the message, right? So what you can put on drawing allows you to to validate this, to formalize a hypothesis, and even to validate this hypothesis. So you basically created a system to to organize the things that is highly dependent on the tool, on the medium. Can we put like this?
On a good day, because I could do all of that work, start the painting, and I could be like, and it just doesn't work. Sometimes the stars just have to be aligned, like sometimes I could start a painting and it just flows out of me. It enters my eyes. That's where it first enters my body. Then it goes through my heart and it comes out my arm. And sometimes It's so fluid. It just happens. It's just a painting that basically paints itself. Sometimes I try the process and there's something about the composition, the color, there's something that's not working. And then at that point, I have to be willing. I don't care how long I spent on the beginning of that painting. If I feel it's not my best effort, I have to be honest, scrape it, start again. Either in a different location, turn to the right. Something is not working. And I have to be willing to admit the truth and say, okay, it's not working. You know it. I know. My hands know it. My heart knows it. All of the parts know it. So start again, and I'll scrape it.
And how do you see these two art, and maybe particularly your the art that you produce with drawings and painting, um, representing or as a tool to organize this world around us? But in a way, what I'm sensing with what you're saying is that I have a tool that can help me make sense, and maybe make sense is because it doesn't have to make sense, right? But you know, you organize the world and you create a view of it that is the painting and or the drawing. How this do you see this having a broader impact, like in communicating, in using this art as a way of communicating? Do you use this as a way of communicating, or this is like, are you saying something, or you are willing for people to feel something, or you are willing for them to take a similar journey to yours or take their own journey? do do you have any purpose on this?
I think um, I think the internet has changed. Social media has changed. I use my social media to show 90% of it is my paintings or drawings, or now I'm doing printmaking. And because art is visual, it transcends languages. So somebody in Japan or Iran or I don't know, just where we don't speak the same language, we could see each other's artwork, and there's just a sense of connection for me where I could see a painting done in Japan, and I could just see the work and fall in love with it, and there are no words needed. I don't have to try and go to Google Translate to write something. I mean, sometimes I do, but I have to because art is visual. So that's a connection that I have with the world. But on a personal level, yeah, I hope to inspire, because I'm an art educator. I have met so many people. I just taught a class last Thursday with adults, and we were on a rooftop on 138th Street in New York City, and some of the participants, some of the adult people, have not drawn since, or painted since they were young. Since I asked a woman, she said, "Oh, I don't even remember the last time." And I think it's a great tool to have for mental health, that maybe, she might go home and have a rough day, and she could turn around and say, "You know what, let me just doodle, let me just draw." So I like to be the inspiration, and walk the walk and talk the talk, that I am painting, I am drawing, and it gives me such pleasure and joy. It gives me like a runner's high, where when I'm painting, I'm not on the planet. And what an awesome escape. It's not harmful to myself, it's not harmful to anybody else. It's fabulous. And when it's finished, whether the painting is not to be judged, whether it's good or bad, save that for the critic. What mind. And if everybody can just kind of play a little more with a pen, or play with ink, or play with paint, adults they're allowed to play as well, and I think it's it just adds, I don't know, it just adds this awesome to life. That's the way I could describe it.
So all these things that you did, what would you, so how do you see the world that we are living today, and how do you feel about the future? Like, do you think the world is getting better? Do you think the world is getting worse? Do you feel like optimistic or pessimistic about things that we are living and that we are going to live?
I think everything is not all good and everything is not all evil. I think there's good happening. There are detrimental things that are happening, and I think it's always going to be like that. I think when I'm on the internet and people are posting something, an image of a painting or something, and someone comes on and leaves a nasty comment, I think there are other people who stop the bullying and say, hey, that's not cool. Like, that's a painting that person did. If you don't like it, keep scrolling. So I think part of that, people are being held accountable for what they're saying and what they're thinking. So I think that's kind of nice, where bullying kind of happened and people either didn't know about it or they didn't say anything. So I think people are more vocal about it. But I also, on the same token, I see all of these children on these electronic devices for many, many, many hours. Going to the store, they have a phone. In the supermarket, they have a phone. At the playground, they have a phone. So I think that's kind of detrimental. I think children need to play. I think they need to be physically active. I think they need to read, they're playing these games, and so in some ways, I think the world is getting better, and in some ways, I think it's not. But I choose to see the better things.
Um, okay, but how? So would you say that this, you brought up the thing with the children and the electronic devices, and at the same time you talked about how art can be a mental health, let's say, medicine, right? It uh, um, can help us, how to say, steam off, or cope with all these, um, ex, with all this overload of information. If I ask you about the challenges that you see ahead in this world that, like you said, has good and has evil, what would be the challenges? Would be connected to that, to these communication issues, or would you see some other stuff?
Well, because I teach a lot of children, that's kind of where I'm focused, and I think physical activity helps children cope with emotions. It helps them cope with anxiety, and I think when kids are on computers a lot of the time, and they're not outside running around, and they're not getting rid of that kind of anxiety energy, then it's stored in them. It just stays in them. But where does it go? It comes out. You can't suppress it. It's going to come out, and maybe the kids lash out more, and then they make not good decisions using that energy. Is what I say. Does that make sense?
It does make a lot of sense. And do you think that was part of your journey also? Like, from what you said, actually it was not the physical part, but the art helped you also with this, making these better decisions.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Because if I'm painting and my hands are moving, it gives me a chance to kind of like have a timeout and just kind of turn the noise down, and so it's not so confronting all of the time. It gives me peace. It gives me self-care. And if I'm a better person myself, then I'm a better teacher. If I'm a better person myself because I gave myself those 2 hours of self-care to paint, then I'm a better mother. If I'm a better mother, then my child is better because I'm better, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And maybe let's jump a little bit to this topic. You and I have young children, and I know that this has had a lot of impact in the way we see the world. And how? So you just said, okay, if I'm a better person because I can better, I know how to better make decisions, deal with my emotions through art, or could be exercise, but let's say something more inner, right? Something that you're doing for yourself. I'll become a better person, then I'll become a better mother, then and the way you said is like um, the way of making a better world passes through being a better mother, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that this is correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because when I have self-care and I give myself that paint to draw, prove myself, because every time I'm drawing, I'm painting, I'm learning, I'm teaching myself. I am my best resource. And having all of that in this vessel of a human body, when I go and let's just say something spills in the house, if I didn't take the time to take care of myself, I can approach my child and I could be angry about it. And I could be like, oh, you spilled something. But because I have peace in my soul, because I have peace in my heart, that when something spills, it's not a crisis. It's okay, well, let's clean it up. So me being a better mother helps me teach my child in a kinder, more patient way, where we just clean it up together. Okay, it's water. We just clean it up. It doesn't become this kind of, doesn't turn into something ugly.
Yes. And so I'm trying to connect what is in this inner experience
Mm,
that a person goes through when they are painting or drawing, and the feeling that the person that relates to you, that could be your child, goes through when you interact with them. Okay, the two processes. I was wondering while you were talking if there's something that can connect it, right? Because yes, you are kinder, but and because you were kinder, how this impacts them
it's
because you were kinder.
magic. The process of painting is magical. It's like I said, it's a runner's high, it's endorphins, it's firing on all cylinders. When I'm making a painting, it's I'm trying to match the color while I'm trying to think about the edges, that when I apply the paint, there's an edge on the paint, and it could be a hard edge, it could be a soft edge, and I'm also thinking about the composition, and I'm thinking about the size. So in me, I am firing on all cylinders, to the point where sometimes after I make a painting, I am physically exhausted, because I just, it's constantly like, which brush is going to transfer this paint to this painting in the way that either I want it, or when I put it down that I could see it. So I'm all, and because I'm a lifelong learner in painting, you don't just wake up, you do a painting and you say, oh, I'm done, I got it. A lifelong process. So I'm also teaching my child, and I also have 3 stepchildren. I'm teaching them, just through the process of watching me, is that being a lifelong learner is a goal. That's a goal to have, because when you're a lifelong learner, then you're not wasting your time. I could sit down and watch TV, or I could be in the studio. I'm going to be in the studio. I want to be working. I want to be painting. I want to be teaching myself. If I could teach my child to be a lifelong learner, that would be awesome. That they have something that they're passionate about. I have passion for what I'm doing, whether it's going to museums or reading books or moving my hands or sketching or talking with other artists or other people about art or teaching art. It's in every fiber of my body, this passion. And I think
But
there's more passion in the world.
look, Amy, the enthusiasm and the energy that you talk about painting is contagious, right? Or it's at least exciting, you know, like I said, wow, what I just felt with you talking about this is like, oh my God, I want to feel this too, you know, like give me some of this.
The magic.
And yes, and I understand that. Okay, I'm. It's part of my scientist mind. Okay, I cannot help it. Try to break this down and find patterns. So what I think is that we are we were made as human beings, and I'm quoting something I read somewhere else, to experience the world with our senses. Okay, so I don't think you can have the same rush that you just described watching something on TV, right? Because
Right.
there's no smell,
There's no
there's no touch,
right.
there's no wind on your face,
No
there's no,
there's no
you know,
but.
like there's the not all your senses are connected to are living this, and there's no replacement, no digital replacement for this experience. So I I get exactly what you're saying. I think that people could experience the same thing with other stuff. I'm going to give you my personal experience with something that gave me similar feeling, which was climbing. Okay,
Uh,
I always thought you know, because I'm afraid of heights, I said, "Oh, will never be for me," and anything. But I decided one day to go to you know, kind of challenge myself, and I was with a friend that was a very experienced climber. Of course, we went in a minor rock to climb, like degree of danger, very low risk, and but it was an amazing feeling, right? First of all, I felt very safe with all the equipment. Okay, I said, okay, I'm not going to die. And I was not afraid of dying. Still, you are, you know, attached to that rock, and you don't want to fall.
right.
You don't want to fall. And it's difficult. So every fiber and every thought of my body was in one simple task: don't fall.
Mm,
Eh? And after 1 hour there, I had this amazing feeling that, wow, I didn't think about work
yeah.
for one entire hour.
Yes.
And at the same time that I was physically exhausted, my mind was so freaking relaxed. Said, so that's what people experience with meditation, right? When
Yeah.
they don't think about anything for, I just didn't think about anything else for 1 hour with, and but I think this is very difficult to teach, right? Because you can tell this about painting. I can say, okay, I want to have this rush that she had, and I go start drawing, and you know, like nothing come the way I wanted. I actually feel frustrated. I, you know, like rip off the piece of paper, and then. So my point is, can you teach this? Do you think this is teachable? How do we try to pass uh, um, this magic to
Because
someone else?
what you can teach is that the importance of consistency. The importance of showing up. You show up when you're tired. You show up when you have 20 minutes. You show up when you have an entire day to work. You show up when, okay, I'm not saying when you're sick, but okay, so you got a headache. You don't make excuses. It's like any passion, anything that you want to get better at in this world, you must be consistent. If you're not consistent, it falls to the wayside. If you are consistent, or I shall say, when you are consistent with drawing, with painting, it's an automatic. It will come automatically because you're showing up and your hands are moving. Help but not teach yourself in that process, but you have to show up. You have to paint, you have to draw. And if you don't do that, then everything turns cold and the magic kind of disappears. In order to have that fire, you have to collect that firewood, you have to cut it, you have to get the embers, you have to do all those little itty bitty pieces to get that nice warm feeling and glow and heat. But if you're not going to do the work to get to that process, and the work is the consistency, you have to show up. You have to read about it, you have to see it in life, you have to go to museums, you have to talk about it, you have to do it, you have to, and then it automatically happens. You didn't show up to go climb and you're thinking about climbing, that's not the process. It kind of just it fizzles out, it just goes away.
So the rush is the reward.
I don't know if the rush is the reward, because I
So all
have these,
because you're saying like,
I have these
okay,
paintings to
if
look.
you,
Go ahead, sorry.
so of course you have the artwork that you produce it. So you're not doing this just for the rush. Actually, the rush continues
Yes.
after,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
In a million ways, because
in a million ways.
I get a rush when I give away a painting. I get a rush when somebody buys a painting. I get a rush when I donate a painting. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
This is very interesting. Okay, we touched something important here, because I believe that one of the problems that we are going to face in the world moving forward is that it's a lot of good things require time. Okay.
Yeah.
But our brain is hardwired for short-term pleasure. So with all this magic and this rush that we are talking about, in my scientific mind, is dopamine, endorphin, serotonin firing here and there. Okay. Yeah. So all these algorithms, these biological algorithms, they were prepared, they were selected over millions of years for short-term preference. What am I going to eat next, in the next half an hour? How do I escape this predator now? Where I'm going to spend the night today? But now we have all these other concerns, like how our children are going to cope with the world? How do I deal with the fact that what I need to keep learning things and all this stuff? This require a long time preference that we are not biologically really equipped for that, and it's hard. But what you just said is that, okay, you can if you put the effort for consistency,
yeah,
you will acquire the ability to produce the rush. Yes. Right? Yes. Let's say that comes with success, with accomplishment, not necessarily success in this term of accomplishment. I have a painting read, right? Like the ones you have behind you. Okay, it's here. It's an accomplishment. And you have all the rush in the process, like you just described it. But this rush doesn't have to end there.
No.
If when you give it away. When you simply look at it again, you have the memories of what you felt when you were, establishing the boundaries or choosing the matching the colors and everything. So this memory gives you maybe not exactly the same rush, but like a rush good enough, I would say. Because what I was worried about is, okay, people want shortcuts to the rush, right?
Right.
And the shortcuts compete with the consistency. So if you're saying, okay, you need consistency,
Yeah.
but you have the shortcut, being it drugs or like or social networks, like giving you these dopamine shots, right? Because that's what they do. So you can either take directly from a drug, or you can take uh, um, from alternative sources like social media, but they are competing for your attention, and this attention, you need it to create consistency and to be rewarded later.
Yeah, it the consistency. I think it was Matisse. I'm not sure, but I think it was Matisse who said the hardest part is actually starting, showing up into the studio and starting. That's the hardest part, because usually 9 times out of 10, once you get those hands moving, then you start with the 5 minutes, you start with 10 minutes, and then an hour passed, and you're like, oh no, I was supposed to go to this meeting. So the hardest part is the consistency. The hardest part is showing up. If you do the work, now I keep saying if, I have to change that. When you do the work, everything else will follow automatically. It just happens magically because you show up and you're doing the work. So yeah, and then the work also has this second life. The second life is when it goes into a show, into an exhibit, and other people see it and they can feel the love that I made that painting with, like that I made, that I felt. I have this magnolia tree, I fell in love with the tree, I made the painting of the tree, I painted with love, I looked at it with love, and it's just this capsule of love. And if somebody can walk that by that painting and feel that love, then I feel like I've done my job. So there's that second life. Or when somebody sees a painting and they either want to buy it, or for if it's their birthday and I give it to them, then there's this other feeling of this beautiful human connection because of this painting, because I showed up every day.
So I'm, it was a revelation for me now how uh, um, the product of consistency and of achievements can have actually a lifelong effect,
Yeah.
and how this, it's not just about getting the rush of the moment of the accomplishment, but having the rush every time it comes back to you in different ways, right? And how can this how can this lifelong reward helps motivating you to show up every day and do the work. We should communicate this better. I don't think this is communicated enough.
Well, I think you can ask anybody who is a marathon runner. You can't get that marathon in if you're not consistent with the practice, with showing up and running. We can't talk.
Yeah, but then the marathon is over, and one way of looking at it, which is also what I'm worried about, is that yes, and then you run the marathon, and then it's over, and then what? All that work, it culminates in 4 hours of pleasure, or actually one single second of pleasure, which is when you cross when you cross the line, right? And then and then it's over. But what I'm thinking is, every time he remembers crossing that line, he gets a little bit of that rush again, right? And then maybe this will justify all the hard work to be able to run the marathon instead of just that second that you cross the line.
Yeah, it's the process of showing up. I mean, people who run marathons don't just wake up out of bed and say, whew, today's a marathon day. There is an entire process where there's goals, where you run this amount, 7 miles here, 13 miles there, a rest day, 4 miles. There's a process. And in that process, you're training because you have to find all of this information someplace I wouldn't know. Like what day is a 4-mile day, what day is a 20-mile day. Then you, in order to run a marathon, you have to run these smaller races. In these smaller races, then you start meeting people and you find your tribe, and then that kind of feeds into it. So even after the marathon is over, I would say people still run after the marathon. I mean, there's that moment where it's like, woo, or they choose another marathon to run, or maybe it's a 5K, or maybe they start running with their children. Maybe they start running club, and it's about I think human connection and consistency. So that's it. And knowing along the way that I will fail, that runner will fail. There's going to be failures. I fail all the time. And to lean into that discomfort and to be okay with failure. I just started doing these mono prints for Inktober. Maybe 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I was printmaking a lot, and now I haven't I haven't done any printmaking for a very, very long time. And I think today is the 6th day. So after this podcast, I have to do my monotype, my monoprint for this challenge. And it is difficult. It is so difficult because I am failing miserably, where my work years ago with printmaking, because I showed up, because I was consistent, what I was producing was more pleasurable to me. What I'm producing over the past couple of days, I feel like such a failure. However, I'm open to the experience and I'm curious. I have this curiosity that this is a 31-day challenge. I am on the 6th day. So what is my work going to look like after 31 days? It's that curiosity that I have to show up and do it, because I want to know what the printmaking will look like in 31 days, and how will that process of printmaking for 31 days, how is that affecting my painting? Because everything I print is the mirror image. So I see the work kind of in reverse. And what does that do to my brain? So I'm losing nothing, even if the work even if I think the work is a failure, and I think it could be better this way, or I could work on this, or I didn't like the way the ink didn't transfer to the paper. There's all these questions. But again, I feel like I'm all fired up inside because I'm so curious to see this process play out, and it's consistent. You got to do one every day. You got to show up. I just did the Strada Easel Challenge. Same thing. Yeah, it's 30 paintings for September. So your first painting, September 1st. Your second painting is September 2nd. And you do all of these, and you have to post on Instagram or Facebook. But through that process, I have seen, or I saw these beautiful people, these beautiful works coming out of people who also are struggling with this same process of consistency. You have to show up.
Okay, for us to close on these ideas, you talk about failure in such a enthusiastic way, also, like with joy. Actually, the word you're talking about failure with joy. And what is coming to my mind, and it was coming throughout our whole conversation, is how all these processes that carries this consistency that you're talking about, if what they do to us isn't building self-confidence, right? Because you cannot laugh on your inability to make your figures with joy if you are not very self-confident that I'm going to overtake the challenge, or that at least that these mistakes, they don't define me, right?
Right.
They don't define me. So yes, I can error, I can make the mistake, I can fail, because that doesn't define me, because I know who I am. And so, and what I've seen, even through a lot of neuroscience research lately, is the importance of self-confidence. And like you, when you are talking to your children, in like, oh, you spill water, instead of getting angry, you you act in a more
Moment. It's a teaching moment.
yeah, it as a teaching moment. I also think about, yes, every time that a small things happens, the way you deal with this help them build self-confidence. Okay, right? And this is it. If you want one uh, um, yeah, maybe one skill, one soft skill for them to have, to go with, to live in the world, I would say self-confidence. It helps everything else. And of course, you need to establish the limit between self-confidence and arrogance, right? But
I could say I don't know if I'm self-confident that
oh, you are, baby.
these these prints are going to get better, because I thought I had a plan yesterday, so I was just using black ink. Then I put a little white ink in with the black yesterday, and I was so optimistic about it. And then when I printed it, I was so just disappointed. I was like, well, that didn't work. I thought it would what it looked like on the plate. You call a plate what the surface you're working on to print. When I had the plate and I saw the image, I was like, yes, this is going to work. And then I printed it and I was like, no, I said the prompt was a raven. And I think my raven looks part raven, part penguin. It looks like a penguin is what I would call it. And I said, well, that didn't work, but I think I don't know if it's the self-confidence or it's the curiosity or the determination. I am determined to try and get a good, out of 31 days, I gotta at least get one good print, right? Maybe. And people might not like those odds, but I'm okay with those odds, because everything that I do, when I'm painting, when I'm teaching, when I'm reading, when I'm printing, I don't ever lose anything. There's no sense of loss. There's a sense of accomplishment. There's a sense of education. I am a lifelong learner, and I may not like my raven penguin. I may not like it, but there's value there that maybe some swipe or some use of a tool. Yesterday, I've been using Q-tips to take the ink off, and yesterday that wasn't meeting my needs. So I said, oh, let me try the end of a paintbrush, and I put paper towel on it, so it was more pointy, and I think that's how I made the eye of the penguin, of the raven. That's how I did the eye. So maybe that's what that taught me, is that there's a new, I don't have to just take paint off, the ink off with a Q-tip. I can paper towel on the end of a paintbrush. So maybe that was the big accomplishment yesterday. So the goal wasn't that my raven turned out fabulous, but I did put another tool in my toolbox.
Amazing, Amy. We could go on and on, but I have the feeling that we have to wrap up. So I'm going to ask you 3 rapid fire questions that you don't have to extend the answer. It can be a yes or no, but you can also elaborate if you want, before I let you go. The first one is, which book you are reading right now?
I'm reading right now The Artist's Way. I'm hippie and buy yourself the effing lilies. But the last one that I read, and it started me journaling, was The Artist's Way.
Okay. The second question is, do you take short or long lunch breaks?
It depends on the day, and it depends on where I'm painting, and it depends on even if I remember to eat while I'm painting.
That's a great answer. The third one is Bitcoin. Are you a believer, a non-believer, or you don't know anything about it, or how do you?
I mean, I've lived under a rock for the past 4.5 years since I had my child. We moved we moved a whole household when he was 1.5, and then we sold a house and bought a house when he was 3.5. And I just got him into pre-K since COVID started. So he just started pre-K, and I think I think this is the beginning of my 4th week of having complete uninterrupted thoughts, from not having to say, look at me, while I'm looking at him. I said, I can't look at you anymore, but look at me. I am looking at you. So my life, especially with the pandemic, that he has been attached to my hip, I've basically lived under a rock. I've lived in a 4.5-year-old's world. And if I have a choice to learn about Bitcoin or painting, I'm going to choose painting. So,
Yes, well, that's a good answer. Amy, thank you so much for doing this. Like it's not. There's a reason why we have been friends for the last 30 years, right? I
it,
I enjoyed so much this conversation. Thank you so much for doing this.
thank you. It was my pleasure.